welcome to FPL Malbo. My name is Andy and I'm going to be taking you through my first draft today. It's the same channel as last year with a different name. Will's not going to be joining me on the channel anymore. It was immensely hard work to be editing two lots of teams really each week, and I think it's about 6 months since I uploaded, so hopefully this year, cutting down the workload a little bit, I'll be able to keep to a consistent schedule of uploads. So if you enjoyed these videos, then subscribe, give it a like, comment below any thoughts that you have on my team, and yeah, let's jump straight into it. So this is my first draft for the 2023-24 season. It's not really my first draft. I've been playing around with it for a couple of weeks, but it's the first time that you guys have seen who I'm looking at. So I'll talk you through my team and I will give you a couple of players that are on my watch list as well that I'm considering trying to find a way to get in. So to start with the goalkeepers, it's the position that is most likely to change for me. I've currently gone with Flecken and Areola. Flecken, it's relying on the fact that he becomes first choice for Brentford. I think it's likely that David Raya will leave, and I think he's been brought in to be first choice. David Raya is still there, or I've got any sort of doubt pre-season, then I'll move from that. And Areola, I think, is the most likely of the 4 million goalkeepers to play. I think there's a possibility he'll be first choice at West Ham. The reason it's most likely to change is essentially I always have a £4.5 million goalkeeper and a £4 million goalkeeper, at least to start the season. If there's somebody I really like and clearly looks stronger, then yeah, first wildcard I could change off that. But so it'll be keeping an eye on pre-season essentially. On my watch list, any of the Brighton keepers, they're all 4.5 million. If I'm really clear which one's going to be first choice, then they can go in. I mean, I very much doubt that it's Sanchez, but the other two, certainly, I am not sure. And you could say the same about Crystal Palace keepers as well. So they're both on the watch list. Again, if I know which one's going to be first choice, they're up there as a possibility. The reason Flecken's in there at the moment is because I just prefer the Brentford defence over any of the other £4.5 million goalkeepers. Leno, I don't think is a terrible shout. I don't understand why Pickford is so highly owned. I like the Everton defence didn't improve that much over Sean Dyche, and I think given a full pre-season to work with them, I'd expect a few improvements. I really like Dyche as a manager, but enough that they're suddenly going to be a mid-table defence. Not convinced. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on that. And Areola, the fact is, if there's no £4 million options, I'll probably just pick the second goalkeeper from a 4.5 just to cover the bench. But I think that there's a couple of players who could possibly be options. Areola's the most likely for me, but like Kelleher at Liverpool, I think potentially could get a move if he looked like he was going to be a starting goalkeeper. There's Stefan at City who did well. Middlesbrough last year, he's the sort of keeper you could see going to a Luton. It's a real shame that James Trafford isn't in the game at the moment because it looks likely he's going to sign as first choice for Burnley, and all of the Man City backup keepers are 4 million. But I think he'll come in at 4.5, which is a real shame. So yeah, I picked my two at the moment, but it's the most likely to change. But it will definitely be a 4.5 and a £4 million goalkeeper. So onto the defence, and you'll see that I've gone relatively big in defence. I'll tell you now, my starting formation's actually currently on a 4-5-1, which I don't love, but I'll explain my reasonings as I go. I think it's fairly inflexible as a formation, and that's why I don't love it. But I've currently got Gabriel. I just want an Arsenal defender in there. Gabriel, I think, is the most nailed. Any of the 5 million, I think Zinchenko and Saliba are both good options, but I think one of the best defences in the league. I'm surprised they're not 5.5. So yeah, Gabriel's the one I've gone with. Sputanen, really highly owned. He's just nailed in that Brighton defence. Again, pretty good defence, but he's got attacking returns as well. We saw that back end of last season against Arsenal, goal and assist. I didn't own him at the time, and it was crushing. So I'm going to try and rectify that with Sputanen in my team. Next one, a little controversial, I think, which is Reece James. Now, I want to be pretty sure that he's starting the season fully fit to actually commit to this one. But the fact is, you can see I've not got Trent in there, and I'll explain my reasonings as I go. But I think Reece James is probably, him and Chilwell are probably the only two defenders I think that have the potential to match Trent for points. And Reece James's output is not the concern, it's his fitness. So if he has a full pre-season and he looks fit, I mean, there's some rumours he may possibly get the captaincy at Chelsea. There isn't a lot of competition at right back, and he seems like a Pochettino fullback. Like Pochettino loves his fullbacks getting forward and joining in with the attack. Like, I can see goals and assists. I've seen the odd rumours he could be on penalties as well, which I think is unlikely, but yeah, I like to follow the template a lot. I think there's a reason why they're in the template. It is because they're really good options, but it's nice to have a little punt outside it, and Reece James is currently my little punt. Alongside that, I've got Shaw, covers the United defence, on a lot of set pieces. Yeah, don't have to explain much about that one. Nailed, like he's first choice left back, isn't he? So he's in there. And then I've got Botman, who, for one of the best defences in the league, similar to Gabriel, I'm surprised he's not 0.5 more expensive. Doesn't offer much of a goal threat. Be on my bench quite a lot. I was actually kind of looking and thinking maybe first game of the season he may possibly start, and Reece James might start on my bench. And then after that, he's got a couple of tough fixtures, and then Newcastle fixtures don't look too bad again. So it would sort of maybe start the first one, bench for 2 or 3 games, and then be a rotation option again. But yeah, I really like the flexibility in that. I really like the defense. Like, it's missing Trent. That's the main one on my watch list. And I can see myself going in with Trent in game week 1. But as you can see, like, the defense is really strong. I think I've got, for me, 4 of the 5 best defenders in the game, and Botman as well, who I think is a great option at that price. So the amount of money that it gives me to use in the midfield is why Trent's not there. Also on my watch list is Bayer. He's who I would go for, I think, if I was going down to a £4 million bench option. But honestly, for that 0.5 more, my 4 million is just going to sit on the bench every week. Botman, I think, is a genuine rotation option for you. But if I was playing three at the back, then I'd have Botman as my rotation and bring Bayer in. I think, by all accounts, he sounds nailed, and I probably just about trust the Burnley defence over the Luton or the Sheffield United defence. So that's why I have him on my watch list. So moving on to the midfield, and that's where the money has been spent, really. First of all, the Arsenal boys. Saka. I saw another content creator talking about these kind of underlying stats for Saka, and they're not as brilliant as you would expect them to be, particularly when you consider he's on penalties and all that stuff. I think it's an eye test thing with Saka, though. He looks like the talisman of that team. He feels underpriced at 8.5. He feels like if Bruno Fernandes was, 10 million a couple of seasons ago, and he was so talismanic for United, it feels that Saka should be priced around there. And yeah, he's nailed. He'll play every game. And then Martinelli, I understand the concerns about Martinelli. Like, there's more competition. From January last year, obviously, they had Trossard as well. They've added Havertz to that, although I think it's likely that Havertz will play more as an 8. It's still another player who can play there, and a quality player at that. But I think Martinelli is just not a set and forget for me, whereas Saka probably is. Like, I think that to start the season, I would be amazed if Martinelli wasn't on the one of the first names on the team sheet. And I actually think like his goal scoring output, he swaps positions with Jesus a lot during games. Like Jesus will drift wide and Martinelli will be the one in the box, and Saka does less of that. So I think actually for goals, Martinelli's a better shout. So yeah, don't know how long he would stay in my team. By the time Champions League comes around, it might be a case of rotating a little bit, but for now, he's strongly in there. Rashford next. Rashford is again pretty much a lock. I think similar to Saka. He feels like the main goal scorer in that United team. I know he's like Bruno's on penalties, but I think his goal output will drop from last year after the like real purple patch that he had post World Cup. But I think there's a middle ground with Rashford. I think he's a top quality player. He was playing like one of the best in the world, and the season before that he was playing terribly. Well, he's somewhere between that. He's a real quality footballer. For 9 million, I think he'll get plenty of goals again this season, pick up plenty of bonus points. I think you're getting a premium player for a smidge under a premium sort of 10 million price. So yeah, he's pretty much a lock. And then the last two, I think, are slightly punty again, but Foden's been in pretty much every draft that I've done. I guess this is just a prediction on my part, really, not really based on a lot, but it looks like Kevin De Bruyne will be injured start of the season. Gundogan's obviously gone. I know that brought in Kovacic as a replacement, but I think Foden will start in that Kevin De Bruyne sort of role where he's the most attacking of the central midfielders, sort of almost as a 10. I think he'll get in the box probably more than Kev does because that's what Foden brings. I don't know. I have a real inkling. His goal output last season, like people talk about him like he had a really poor season, and he kind of did, but like he started the season really well. He actually scored quite a lot of goals. I think I remember hearing that he had more goal and assists than Bruno Fernandes last year. And I don't know. I just feel like he's going to be starting the season in the first team. I think probably centrally, and I think his output when he gets an actual run of games is so good that it's worth the risk on that one for me. City's fixtures are really good as well, so I want a second City attacker. And yeah, I haven't really considered any other of the City attack. I just think Foden's the one to go for start of the season. Similar to Martinelli, don't see him staying in my team all season. I just have an inkling he's going to start the season, and probably start well. And then lastly, I've got James Maddison. It could potentially change. But Tottenham have been crying out, I think, for a creative player from like central areas, and that is Maddison. There's nobody else in their squad at the moment, I think, who can really do that. Unless like Ndombele gets another chance or someone like that. But I think the likelihood is that Maddison's going to be pretty nailed in that team. And no European football to rotate around. If they keep hold of Harry Kane, if Son like comes back to form, then there's goals in that team. Like Richarlison as well. Like there's seriously goals, and Maddison has been creating chances that have been unfinished for a couple of years now. Really, like he's always got decent returns in FPL, but in a better team, I can see his FPL returns really, really jumping. So he's in there as well. On my watch list, so I've got Bruno Fernandes, who I owned for a bit at the back end of last season. He wasn't terrible for me, but I watched a few United matches and he always felt like there was a real hole just around the corner. Like finishing wise, he seemed to be just, hitting the woodwork regularly or just missing chances. And then he creates so much in that United team that goes unfinished. I think I'm not all against having Rashford and Bruno, but you feel like most of the time that Bruno's creating those chances, the ones that are finished are by Rashford. And obviously, you get the extra point for the goal scorer, most likely more bonus points for it as well. And I'm not so sold on the United attack that I desperately want to double up on it. And United are still lacking a goal scorer. Like if they go out and buy Osimhen or Kane, then changes the whole complexion. But until then, I think if they take a punt and sign like Rasmus Højlund or someone like that, it might be a very good player, but you'd sort of be surprised if they really hit the ground running. So, yeah, he's on the watch list, but the more I talk about Bruno Fernandes, the more I talk myself out of it. Loads of other options. There's loads of good £6.5 million options. I put on Buemo because he's my favourite out of them. I think he'll be on penalties, possibly starting down the middle. I could definitely see Brentford going back to playing two up top. To like Tony's kind of irreplaceable for him. So whether they go like Visser and Buemo together, which is what they did when they first got into the Premiership a lot. But we'll see. But yeah, on penalties, his record when Tony's not been playing is really good. Like he's a goal scorer. So yeah, whether he plays through the middle, whether he plays wide, he's still I think a really good option at that price point. But you've got the Brighton midfields as well. I'm not quite sure why Mitoma's so much like higher than the other ones. But yeah, good option. Eze, I think, is worth a little bit of a look at as well, but a little bit lower down the list for me. The one that really interests me as a cheaper midfield option is Enciso. I'd like to see in pre-season how Brighton sort of line up. So I could see him being the starting 10, and at 5.5 million, that's a real interesting option. I think he looks like a great player in the making. Might not be perfect now, but like a real talent. And yeah, there's a bit of competition there, but I don't know. Lallana's the only one I really see as an out and out 10. Like McAllister played there a lot last season, but his replacement is kind of like sixes. Like Milner's not going to play there. The lad from Dortmund's not going to either. Sort of defensive midfielders. So it's more whether we've seen him kind of play two strikers and have one of them drop off a little bit, or like say Lallana, I think is the obvious option, who's injured for a lot of the back end of last season. But I don't know whether Lallana is going to come back into the team or whether he's now kind of seen as a bench and a rotation option. So yeah, that's the reason why I haven't gotten Enciso, and also squad structure. I've just put all of the money into the midfield, so there is no cheap option in there. But if I had a rotating, say, striker and cheap midfield option, which is something I'm considering, then Enciso would be my midfield risk, I think. Moving on to the strikers now, and this is the reason that I'm on a 4-5-1 essentially. So I just don't like many of the striking options. So Haaland's a lock, obviously, and the reason that I've not got Kane or Salah is because I'm just going to captain Haaland every week, and it's kind of boring, but I don't see a better option, and I'm quite happy if, for whatever reason, Haaland late injury, like players like Saka and Rashford and Foden, they aren't bad options for me to go to as captaincy, so I don't mind that aspect at all. So on my bench at the moment as strikers, I've got Calvert-Lewin and Plange. Calvert-Lewin is an £8 million striker if he's fit. And if he's fit is such a big question because it's been 2 years since he consistently has been. But there's just no one else in that Everton squad really who, like, he seems like such a Sean Dyche type of striker, and they are crying out for a target man striker. I'm sure Dyche would love to play 4-4-2, and the plethora of kind of players who can play there that he has, just have one of them alongside Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, it's a real hope that he has a fit pre-season and looks like he's going to start as Sean Dyche is like, main number 9. And if he does, then yeah, I think he's so underpriced and deservedly so because he's been unfit for 2 years. But yeah, I'm really gonna have to be convinced in pre-season to stick with that. But at the moment, I like it as a punt if he is fit to start the season, and yeah, just Everton's lack of options means I think he could. It should be nailed in that team if fully fit. Plunge, I've just picked any 4.5 million. I'll probably do a bit of research, but I don't see any of them being likely to play. A lot of people have gone for Archer and Villa. I'd need to be convinced that he's the actual backup to Watkins to put him in. The problem is if you're just putting him in as a bench option, you don't really want the one that's highly owned because they're likely to drop in price. So at the moment, I've just picked Planche, but they'll be third on my bench every single week, never play. So hopefully it won't matter who I put there. My watch list in terms of strikers, first of all, if I was to change to 2 up front, I've got my eye on Ollie Watkins. I'm really not convinced by Jesus. He's a great player, but as an FPL option, he always underperforms his XG. And yeah, I just think, Martinelli's the same price. I think Martinelli will get a higher FPL return than Jesus well. And I've got Saka and Gabriel as well, so I don't even have an Arsenal spot at the moment. So yeah, not really under consideration. Whereas Watkins, he's nailed on in that Villa team. Yes, they've got kind of mixed fixtures early on, but we saw sort of after the World Cup when he went on a real hot streak. He's just a solid Premiership striker. I think he'll get 12 goals a season, and it'll just tick over. And for 8 million, again, I'm still not convinced that he's going to do better than the £8 million mids, but I think he has the potential to be a decent striking option. My other kind of punty one, if I went to say a 3-5-2, is Nkunku. I think I'm biased from how well he's done against City in the past for Leipzig, but I just think he looks like a great player. But I've only got one risky Chelsea option in there. Chelsea have so many great options because they're all underpriced for how good a player I think they are because of how poor Chelsea were last season. But I still think Chelsea have got some glaring issues in their squad. So it'll be really interesting to see what that first game week Chelsea team looks like. And yeah, I think there's value to be had there. But I think taking 2 Chelsea punts in my first draft is maybe overdoing it. And then lastly, I keep an eye on Broja. A similar reason why he's not in there. Chelsea punt. I've seen some stuff that apparently he has the potential to be starting striker. They brought in Jackson, and I think the likelihood is that he will start as the main man for Chelsea this season. But he's not come with a massive pedigree. He's basically had half a really good season. I mean, the only reason that he didn't move to Bournemouth in January is because he failed medical. Otherwise, he would have been playing for Bournemouth the back end of last season. And then he had such a great second half of the season in La Liga that he's now signed for Chelsea. But I don't know. I think Broja he looks like a Chelsea striker. He's incredibly physical and yeah, loves a battle. There's goals in him. He looked like a real player when he was on loan at Southampton. One of the reasons Southampton went down last season is because they couldn't really replace him. I think he would have played more last year if he wasn't injured as well. So if he gets a lot of starts in pre-season, I might take a punt on him. But that would again be a bench option similar to the Calvin Lloyd situation. So that's my team. Currently on a 4-5-1 just because I don't like any of the striking options, but I think there's a chance I might back away from that because I don't know. Calvin Lewin is your second striker, sort of bench option striker seems overly risky. And the other thing is downgrading a midfielder to give me a bit of money to spend on Trent, which again, very much considering. But yeah, a lot of the players in there are kind of locked. Let me know in the comments what you think of the choices. Where can I improve it? And if you enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing, leave me a comment, give me a like. All that good stuff is massively appreciated. And I'll be back with another draft video for you very soon.